Welcome back everyone to Board Game Breakdown. I am Chris Solomon here with another video, and today we are focused on the game Rolling Realms from Stegmaier Games. So this is a roll and write game. That category of games tends to be really popular right now. I'm seeing a lot of them come out. So it's a game where you're going to roll this dice that everyone's going to use. You get some dry erase markers, and from what the box says, it scales, well, it's 1 to 6 players per box. But if you had enough components or creativity and pieces of paper, supposedly it's infinitely scalable. So I don't know how practically that works. But that's what the literature says. I know that Jamey from Stegmaier decided to put something out in 2020 during the pandemic, something that people could play over YouTube, FaceTime, Facebook Live, Zoom, any of those type of things. And then it got enough praise and people wanting an actual copy that they published the copy you can buy at stores or from the Stegmaier website around 2021. So we'll take a look at that. The centerpiece for this are these different cards. Here's just a couple of them. You get 11, but they are modeled after different games in the Stegmaier catalog. So you see Wingspan, Viticulture, Tapestry. So you get a card that you will write the numbers on, and it's just a really neat way to kind of explore their catalog of games. If you're a Stegmaier fan, I think you'll like a lot of the little Easter eggs and the ways they implement parts of each of the game into these cards. So before we get started, remember to subscribe down below on YouTube so you can get any of our most recent videos as they get published. Go to our website, boardgamebreakdown.com, where you can see text reviews, written reviews, links to our other videos. We're also an Amazon affiliate, so if you like anything that you see and you would like to purchase it from Amazon, you can use those links right there. Won't cost you anything more or different from the regular website, but it will kind of help us keep making this content for you all out there. Or if you like something you see, go pick it up at your local game store or whatever you feel most comfortable with. We're also on Instagram. You can find us at board.game.breakdown, and we'd love to hear from you. Comment in any of the sections of the social media, and we'll get back to you when we can. All right, so without further ado, let's get started with Rolling Realms. All right, so let's get started with Rolling Realms by Stegmaier Games. I've got the box here. It's pretty small. Take this off, put that over to the side. All right, so pretty standard stuff here. You got your instruction booklet. You have an instruction booklet for the solitaire version, which we'll come back to in a second. This is for the solitaire mini golf variant. We'll talk about in a second. You've got some 6 dry erase markers. We'll put one of those off to the side. We'll only need 1 here. We've got some little eraser wipe things. 6 of them, in fact. We've got the dice. They're nice blue and green swirly situation here. Those are nice, big and chunky, so everyone can see them. And then you got the cards. So go and take those out here. So some of them I still have packed up, but basically what you're getting is this deck of green cards here is for the solitaire version. Again, we'll go over that shortly. And then what you're getting is 6 different sets. So you'll get 11 of these cards modeled after different Stegmaier games. The backs are different colors, so like these are green for the green player. You see those are red burgundy, I guess. You got some yellow ones there. So that's a set for a player, and then they also, each player gets this card, which gives them the resource tracker and this turn/score tracker. And that is basically it. So that is what you would give out to each player, outside of the die here, because everyone shares the same die. This that you see here is what you would hand out to each player that was playing. So the game was made to be able to play like over Facebook Live or over Zoom or anything like that. So I think that's why you get these big chunky dice, so that everyone can see them easily. But basically what we'll do is I'm going to go through quickly how to kind of play a wide overview, and then we'll look at each of these cards and we'll kind of discuss what you do on each card, because I think that's pretty fun, and that's really one of the draws of the game, is how do they turn each of the Stegmaier games, like some sort of part of the game is connected in these cards. And though I have not played every Stegmaier game that is represented in those cards, the ones I have played, it's pretty neat trying to figure out how it works. So in a normal game, we'll pretend like we're doing a two-player game. You would hand all this stuff out, like I said. And what you would do is you would take your deck of cards and you would shuffle them up. And any player could do this. And you would draw the top three and put the other ones to the side for a minute. Move this stuff up here. And so what I've drawn is pendulum, wingspan, and between two castles. So the other players that were playing, if it's 2-player, 3-player, you can actually go up. It says it could scale infinitely as long as you had the components. And I guess honestly, people could just grab pieces of paper and draw this and use the dice. I mean, it was a print to play game, I believe, and then enough people clamored for it to be actually produced that they produced a real version. But I mean, you could have tons of people playing this. I don't think it really has any sort of limit. I don't know how it would play with that many people. But anyways, everyone would get out these same cards, and this would be the first round. So it's going to play over 3 rounds, which are right there. So after this round, you would either grab out 3 more, or someone else could shuffle and grab out 3 more. You'll basically use 9 different of these cards over the 3 rounds, and it comes with 11. So you're not guaranteed to use every single one of them in one 3-round game. So at this point, you've got your cards. They do different things, which we'll go over in a minute. But you would take your die. You'd roll 1 set. So we have a 3 and a 2. So you take your marker and you would first write this down in this top little box to keep track of your turns. So we have a 3 and a 2. And now everyone would use that 3 and a 2, and they can basically use them however they want to, barring certain restrictions. So obviously each card has its own restrictions, which we'll discuss in a second. But the main other restrictions are you can't really play both die in one realm. So think of these as your realms. So if I want to take this 3, and I'm going to use this 3 here in wingspan, so I fill it in there. That gives me a pumpkin. So if you get any sort of resource, you can circle it up here. So I get a pumpkin. Then that 3 is used. So now I can only use my 2, and maybe I want to use my 2 to do this. And so then I'm done. I'd wait for all the other players to use their 3 and their 2, and then at that point, we roll again, and now we have a 3 and a 1. So we put 3 and a 1 up there, and then we'd move forward like that. And you basically take 9 turns. At the end of 9 turns, you figure out how many stars each realm is given based off of the numbers you played in the realm and the different rules for each realm. For your resources, if you end up using resources throughout the game, you just put like an X over it, so that would allow me to use that pumpkin, though you can't actually use only one pumpkin, you have to have two, but just for example's sake. But for every resource that you don't use, let's say we end like that, you get 0.1 star, so that would give me 0.4. So we'll pretend I got 9 and then 0.4 stars there. So I would be around 1. And like I said, you would put these away, deal out 3 new ones, go on to round 2, round 3, and then total up your score, and whoever has the most wins. So as far as the resources go, let me get this a little closer. There's pumpkins, there's hearts, there's coins. So each one specializes in a slightly different modification that you get throughout the game. So pumpkins let you really alter dice that you've thrown. So you can use 2 pumpkins and adjust a die up or down 1. So I could use 2 pumpkins and make this a 4. Now I only make that a 4 for my own card. Everyone else who is playing with me still plays as if that is a 3. It doesn't alter it for everybody. You also cannot alter a 1 to a 6 and a 6 back to a 1. It's not like around the world or whatever people refer to that. It's got to be thought of as 1 up to 6. If you use 3 pumpkins, you can adjust the die up 1, down 1, or leave it the same, but it also gives you the ability to use it in a realm you've already used a number in that time. So let's just pretend that I roll dice and I've got a 6 and a 2. So let's say I used the 2 here, and then if I had 3 pumpkins, I could use those and say, well, I don't want to adjust the 6 because I can adjust it 1, up 1, down 1, or 0. So I'm going to adjust that 0, but I'm going to use the power of using it in a realm that I've already used it in. So I already used a 2 here, but now I can use my 6. And that would score me 2 stars. So that's the main point of the pumpkins. For the second one, the hearts, it really lets you duplicate dice that you've already rolled. So if you roll a pair and you use 2 hearts, then you can gain another die of that value. So let's say I rolled 2 2s, I could use my 2 stars, and basically I have a third 2 in order to use. No one else gets that 2, it's only me, and unless I use the 3 pumpkins, I would have to use a 2 here, a 2 here, and a 2 here. I couldn't double up just because it's like a ghost die or whatever you want to call it. But it basically gives you a third die, which you'll see, depending on which cards you're using, sometimes you really need those to get the stars. If you use 3 stars, you don't have to have a double or a pair, but you can duplicate any value on the die. So maybe I rolled a 6 and a 2. I could use 3 hearts instead, and I could either duplicate and have like an extra 6 or duplicate that and have an extra 2. So it basically gives you a way to have a third die only for you to use and nobody else. Lastly, you have coins. I really like the coins. They're pretty powerful. If the sum of your rolled die is a 7, so I guess it's lucky 7, then you can gain a die of the same value as either rolled die. So it's a little bit like the hearts there, but if I had a 6 and a 1, I could use just 2 coins, and I could either use it, create another 6 or create another 1. And then lastly, you can spend any value of coins from 1 to 6, and you basically generate a die of that amount. So if I had 2 coins and it was the very last turn, I could spend those 2 coins and I would basically have a ghost die of 2 that I could use somewhere in the realms. So that is pretty much how you play a multiplayer game of Rolling Realms. Real quick, I will show you a little bit about the solo variant here. Let me just erase this. Just erase these for the time being. So when you play solo, what you're going to want to do is you want to get out that deck of green cards. So these, and they're double-sided. And they've got holes 1 through 18. So think of it as kind of like a miniature golf course. But I'm going to start with just the hole number 1 here. All right, so this gives you a couple different information. Par is how many tries that you're attempting to conquer this. Conquer is a weird word to say about mini golf. But you want to complete this hole in that many tries. These are the realms you're going to get out. And then here are some rule changes. So like this one says play only 7 turns. Cross out die spaces for 2 turns before starting to help you remember only to play 7. And then down here, in order for you to achieve this hole, you have to score at least 8 stars. And then you'll see that a hard version for 9.5 stars. So if we were playing this, we would immediately cross out 2 rounds worth of that, because we want to only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds, because that was one of the special rules. We would get out our 3 realms that it specifically asked for. So we would get out Charterstone, we'd get out Scythe, we'd get out Tapestry, and we would know we are attempting to score at least 8 stars. Now, if we do not score 8 stars by the end of the 7th turn, then we have missed that hole. What does that mean? Over here on your score sheet, it has the 18 holes here, and you get up to basically 4 tries to get it correct. So on this first hole, you'll see that I got it in the first try. So I checked it off, I put a 1 over here, and the par was 1. On the second hole, the par is 2. It actually took me 4 tries to get that completed in the using the rule set that it said. So you count down here, and at the end, the par is 36, and you're attempting to get that or under. So you're trying to beat that in 36 tries. So each hole is a little different. When you're done, you can flip it over and read the next one. Take these, put them away, pull them out. So I've done, let's see, the first 15 holes of 18, and it's been a lot of fun. It's real quick, it doesn't take too long, but it can be a brain burner depending on which rule set it is causing you to use. Some of them have taken me, I've not succeeded at them. If you don't get them in 4 tries, then you automatically get a 5. So I think there's 2 that have stumped me. Most of them I've got in 1 try, and I wouldn't necessarily say I'm all that great at this game. But a couple of them are in the middle, but I haven't tried the hard difficulty, so I'm curious as to how that will be. But that's basically how you play. So what we'll do is we will go over each card a little more in depth so you can see how each one plays, and we'll just go over some details of that. All right, so it's time to go over the specific cards a little bit more in detail. None of them are too crazy or hard, so we'll zip right through this, but I've kind of zoomed in, so hopefully you can see each card a little better, and then we'll roll over in this area, and we'll just kind of pretend like we're playing each card, and we'll kind of go from there. So the first one I've grabbed out of here is Charterstone. So the way this works is you'll see this top row 1 to 6, and each one has a resource, and then you have these bottom crates. So when you roll the dice, and we'll say we got like that, you've got a couple different choices. Well, 2 choices, I guess. So the first choice is you use 1 die, and obviously we've got 1, so we got to use 1. You cross the number out here, and you would get that resource, so I would score a pumpkin. And then your die that you did not use, you get to put down in this bottom crate. Now you still get to use this one, so I could use this one on a different card out of the 3 I'm playing with. So let's just roll again. All right, say this was a turn later on, so I would use that 3 up here and get a heart, and then I would mark the 1 down there. Eventually, let's pretend I roll a 5 and a 1. The second thing I can do is, instead of marking the number up here, I can use the number and open any of the crates down here that match that number, and that gives me a star for each of those crates. So at this point I could say, well, I'm going to use this 1 to mark off 2 crates, which gives me 2 stars. So I guess the thought is that if you can get the same type of numbers down here, eventually when you roll that number in 1 turn, you'll be able to open all those crates and get all those stars for it. All right, next up is Scythe. I really like how this one mimics the board, your individual player board on Scythe, where you have the top row of actions and then the bottom row of actions. If you've played Scythe, you understand how that works with the little cubes. So let's roll this. Let's say I got a 3 and a 3. So you've got a couple different options here, much like the Charterstone one. But what you can do is you can mark off a 3 up here, and you get the pumpkin. Along with that, if you can pay for whatever the bottom number is. So if I had a coin that I wanted to give up, at that same time, I could cross that off, pay a coin, and I would get a star. Your other option is, if I rolled this and I just wanted to straight up get a star and not worry about that top, I could have used a 3 instead and crossed this one out, paid a heart, and got a star for that one too. So much like Scythe, you can't just you always have to use the top ones, and then you can then use the bottom ones. You can't go from the bottom and then use the top. So it kind of is giving you that same mechanism here, but it's a really great way to get resources. Even though you're having to spend them down here, you can get them to kind of help you out in other areas before you got to spend them. All right, next we have Tapestry. So this is modeled after the part of Tapestry where you put the landmarks and your buildings on the maps. So this one's pretty easy to understand. However, you roll the dice, it lines up with one of these shapes down here. So if I got a 4 and a 2, I could take the 4 and I could color in this type of shape. So I could do like this. All right, so you can't color over the brown spots that are already in there, just like in the Tapestry game. But now that I've filled in this small cube, I get whatever resource was under that, which is a coin. Now I can still use 4 again. I don't have to cross 4 out. These are reusable because you'd see pretty quickly you end up where you can only get like 1s and 2s to fit in there. But the way you score stars is if I can get this whole section filled up, then I get this star. Likewise, if I get a full column filled up, I would get this star. So you see you get the big rows or the big columns. There's no way to actually get 5 stars. You can get 4 or you can get 6, but you can't pull off just 5. But as you fill them out, you get those resources and then the stars with it. All right, next we have Wingspan. So in this one, when you roll the dice, you can fill in any of the birds, I think, is what I'll call them. They're just little wings, but once you fill them in, you have to fill them in left to right. So you can't all of a sudden decide to put in something with that star. But for this, I could say, well, I want my 6 here. That gives me a coin. And then the next time I roll, I could say a 5 here and gets me a heart. So then That's a good roll because I had a 1. So I could put any number in now that I'm at this spot and gain a star. But if I can make all the numbers add up to whatever that big number is, then you get an additional star. So put a 1 here, I get a star for the 1, and then I've got 11 plus 1 is 12, which equals that, and I get another star. So you can maximize your birds, get 2 stars for each one, gives you all 6 stars, and that gives you a lot of resources, but you do have to move left to right. All right, let's see. We'll do viticulture next. This is actually the last one of these that I've played the Stegmaier game, so I don't necessarily know how the rest of them mimic. But I do own viticulture, and it is one of my favorites. So with this one, you roll, obviously. And you can do 2 different things depending on what you've rolled. So first you can cross, or circle, I should say, one of the die. All right, so I'm going to circle that, outline that one with my 5. And basically I gain a grape of that value, and I gain the resource. So I would go ahead and get a pumpkin. Later, roll again. All right, so I could either circle the 3 and get a heart, and then I have grapes that equal 8, or I can use any grapes I have plus 1 die and try to get 10, 11, or 12. So 5 and 5 is 10, so I would use that 5 plus this 5, and I would get that. That gives me 2 stars. But you'll see that the 5 is no longer being used. So if you used up, say, your 6 and a die for your 12, to make 11, you would have to use a combination of 3 grapes because you've already spent your high-end grapes there. But you do have to circle them first, so I kind of cheated on that one. You have to obtain the grape by circling it, and then you can use it later to fill up your wine orders. All right, Euphoria. This is one of the easier ones. I guess they're all easy, but when you roll that, you see you have 1 through 6 on this side and 1 through 6 on that side. So you can take a die, and let's say I decide to take this 2. Actually, yeah, let's do the 2 first. I can mark that on either side. You then add up all of the numbers in that area, and by area I mean this, okay? And then whatever your summation is, you compare it down here and get those resources. So I have 2, 1 through 2 is a coin, so I'd gain a coin. All right, say I rolled the same thing, we'll pretend a 4 and a 2, and I marked a 4 here. Now when you add them up, 4 plus 2 is 6, so 6 lands you there, so that way I would get a star for that one. If I roll these again, and I got a 6, I could use the 6 over here, and now I count this area, which is 6, and it's 4 through 10, so I get another star. So you can quickly get stars by rolling these 4 through 6s, or 4, 5, or 6. But once you cross them out, if you roll a 5, then it quickly puts you out of that, where you can start getting pumpkins and hearts and not stars. There is a caveat where if you roll doubles, you could cross both of them out on both sides. And that's nice because you get to basically mark this card twice for that. And the second die is still actually usable. So let's just say, sorry, y'all. 5 and 5 were rolled. I could do a 5. I could do a 5. And then one of these 5s is still available for another realm. So it's a nice way to knock out spaces on that. All right, this card, the Society. So this should be Red Rising. I'm gonna guess that the situation with the name is that because Red Rising is like a already an IP, that they probably didn't have the licensing to put that name inside this game as well. So I think they just probably had to come up with a knockoff name, but you can see the artwork behind it. It still looks like the front of a box of Red Rising. So if I'm wrong, you guys can tell me in the comments. This one is fairly simple. You can fill these in any order, but each number must be lower than the one directly above it. So like I could put the 5 here because below this 5, I would need to have a 4 or below. If I have 4 here, I would need to have a 3 or below in these two. Once you've completed a triangle like this, you get a star. And if you fill up everything, you get that extra star. As you fill up rows going this way, you get these resources. Similar to that one is between two castles, but it's a little bit of the opposite, where in this one, you're going to go from the bottom up, and they have to be the bigger numbers on the bottom. So we could do a 6 here, we could do a 4 there. The way you're going to score stars in this is there's technically 3 rows for each castle. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as soon as you fill up a row, like if I had a 6 there, I would get a star. If I get a 5 here and a 5 and 6, that's a row, I would get a star there. Once I get to the top, I get that resource. So as you build up, you get resources. As you build across, within each castle. So I could still get a star just for this space. I don't need to fill up all 3 because these castles are scored separately. All right, so along with scythe, they also included my little scythe. And this one, we'll roll the die. So what you can do is you can pick which set of hexagons that you want to cross out. So if I had this 3, I could cross out the 3 right here, and I would get this pumpkin because it's around the pumpkin. Later on, I could do that. I get another 3. If I cross the 3 out on this side, I get a heart. And then this is telling you once you've crossed out both numbers that are equal, you also get a coin. So you don't get any stars from filling these things in. You're just generating a lot of resources. The way you score is at the end, you check your resources here, and for every pumpkin, heart, or coin category that you've scored at least 6, and you can use them or not use them, you get 2 points. So if I had, let's say, 7 pumpkins, 2 hearts, 6 coins, and let's say I used my hearts, doesn't matter if I use them or not, I would count them up. I would get 2 points for that because I had 7. I would get 0 points for that one. I would get 2 points for that because I have 6. So that would give me 1, 2, 3, 4 stars. Next, the last one here, we have pendulum. So when you roll dice, you've got, again, 2 different options. So you can use one die and circle any of these things up here. You don't get those resources or stars right then. And it doesn't matter which die you use. They all cost the same. So let's say I elect to use this 3. And I circle that. I roll again. I use a 6 on that star. I roll again. So at this point, I could use a 6 to cross this out. So you'll see these numbers down here. Once you've filled out a whole hourglass, so there was only 1 on that one, I would get everything I'd circled up here. So that would generate me a star, a pumpkin, and a coin. Later, I might be able to circle this one and this one. And then eventually I roll a 5, and another turn I roll a 4. Now that this is filled up, I would get 2 stars, a pumpkin, a heart, and 2 coins. So the more things you can circle up here, once you fill up the hourglass, the more stuff you get. And then the last one of these is between 2 cities. This one allows you to fill in any numbers from the dice anywhere, however you want to, but the rule is there can't be any 2 of the same number touching. So I could have a 6 here, a 1 here, I could then do a 4 over here. I could do a 3. When finally I rolled, I could do anything right here except a 1, because a 1 would be touching a 4 or a 3. So I could put another 6. At that point, once a column or a row is complete, you score that. Now, to get stars, it says score stars equal to the lowest score of the other 2 realms. But the score cannot be higher than the number of filled squares here. So basically what I'm saying is you can't just like ignore this card and all of a sudden you have your other, let's say Pendulum is your lowest scoring card, but it got 5 and your third one got 6. And you only had 4 here. 4 is lower than the 5, and so this would score no points. You'd have to get at least 5. Well, I wrote a 5, that was kind of dumb, but you'd have to have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes filled in order to get 5 if that was your lowest score. Now, if Pendulum only had a score of 1 star, and that was your lowest score, then Between Two Cities would only need to have 1 box filled in. Now, that would only score you 1 star. You probably would not win because your third one would, and even if you had 6, you would only end up with 8 stars, which is pretty lousy. But that's how that one works. So that's, I think, the only one that scores based off of what's going on in the other realms, which kind of adds a nice little kink to the whole thing, because you're really having to not just look at these as kind of separate realms, but you're definitely having to look at them in the context of what you're doing with Between Two Cities. So those are the 11 realms that come with the base game. So I say base game because they are putting out promotional stuff here. I'm just going to throw that little golf thing there because I like the artwork. So they're putting out promotional packs of cards with some Stegmaier games and some other games that I think that Jamey likes. So there's like a Honey Buzz. There is another set for let's see, Feast of Odin is another one, and then like there's 2 of the Stegmaier games, Smitten, which is like a little card game that they just put out for their 10-year anniversary. So they have a set of that coming out. I know you can order it, but I don't know if it's actually been produced yet. But they're putting out these additional little sets, and when you buy them, you get a set of 6 so that everyone gets one. And so I really like how they're adding those. They're only a couple bucks, and then you can put them in, mix them in, so you have more realms to play. So that is the end of Rolling Realms by Stegmaier Games. I hope that was helpful for anyone who is interested in this and has been wondering about it since it came to light back, I guess, during the pandemic was when it originally got kind of the idea thrown around. But, hopefully this has given you some more information. Please leave any comments, questions you might have, anything I messed up. Feel free to correct me in the comments. We'll have more content coming out soon. So subscribe if you're on YouTube and check it out when it comes out. Thanks, y'all.